Welcome to In Focus Texas, where we take an in-depth look at the issues that matter to you. I'm your host, Carla Leal. The 118th Congress is in full swing. A Texas-sized delegation is representing us on Capitol Hill with a total of 40 federal lawmakers. While across from the U.S., 81 of the 535 legislators are new to the job. Among those in their first term, 7 Texans are now part of the U.S. House of Representatives. On this show, we'll learn more about the 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats that are part of this new class of Texan federal legislators. As the first session of the 118th Congress advances, each new Congress member from Texas has different priorities. Our Washington correspondent Rina Diamante caught up with part of her freshman class and has more.
Iraq War veteran Wesley Hunt will represent the Houston area in one of the 2 districts added as a result of the state's population growth.
It is my job to represent all 800,000 people that live in my district that are some way tangentially related to the oil and gas and energy industry. Over the course of the past few years, I think we've seen an assault on our own production.
Another incoming freshman, former Collin County Judge Keith Self, a Republican who hopes to fulfill his promise to limit federal rules on elections, as well as address infrastructure needs in growing North Texas.
First of all, adequate highway, because everybody's got to get to work. Secondly, the 3rd passenger airport in the Metroplex will be the McKinney International Airport. We need to get it squared away with funding, with a glide path to success. And then thirdly, water.
The 2 freshman Democrats from Texas have joined the ranks of the Liberal Congressional Progressive Caucus. One of them, former Austin City Councilman Greg Casar.
I'll be a strong vote and advocate for pro-worker bills in Congress. I also am going to use my office and myself to go and advocate for workers at their workplaces.
One of the last times Representative Jasmine Crockett of Dallas was in D.C. was when Democrats in the Texas legislature left Austin in a fight over voting rights.
Honestly, you know, having Greg and I work in tandem together means that there is a very strong there are very strong voices, number one, for young people, as well as for progressives.
The other new Texas members are Republicans, former Navy SEAL Morgan Luttrell, former Smith County Judge Nathaniel Moran, and Monica Dela Cruz, who flipped a border district that had been Democratic. National Republicans were hoping to pick up 2 more seats in South Texas, but the Democrats fended off those challenges. In Washington, Rina Diamante, Spectrum News.
Among the 7 Texans that are new to the U.S. House of Representatives, one of them has been a public defender, civil rights attorney, and a state representative, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who joins our In Focus Texas team from Washington. Representative Crockett, welcome. You spent 1 term as a Texas legislator. What are some of the issues that you tackled statewide, and what motivated you to take that leap and run for Congress?
Absolutely. First of all, it's great to see you. And yeah, I did something that is not done very often in the state of Texas, and probably not done very often in any other state, just kind of doing the freshman term and then becoming a freshman in the U.S. House. But some of the things that I really focused on in the Texas House were voting rights, obviously reproductive health, as well as reforms around criminal justice overall. So looking at things from minimizing the contacts that regular folk have with law enforcement to, say, getting creative about marijuana and who gets charged with it and how they get charged, whether it's a felony, whether it's a misdemeanor. Did lots of stuff around our youthful offenders as well. Trying to make sure that young people have a chance, even if they commit a mistake at a young age, such as 17.
And as you start your first term leading our 30th congressional district that covers much of Dallas and Tarrant counties, what are your legislative priorities and what are you doing to try and advance them?
Yeah, so my priorities are still very similar. Obviously, we saw what happened with Tyree Nichols, and as a member of the Oversight Committee, I fought to re-add the subcommittee on civil rights and civil liberties to oversight so that we can have a robust conversation about what a national policing standard would look like. Obviously, I joined the Congressional Black Caucus and still trying to move forward on the police reform that would have been codified in the form of the George Floyd Policing and Reform Act. Obviously, I'm still a very big proponent of voting rights and voting access for everyone. But I am also on the Ag Committee, and we have a great opportunity in the Farm Bill this session. The Farm Bill doesn't come across every single session, but it is up right now. And so I have an opportunity to really focus on nutrition and SNAP benefits and making sure that hopefully we can do some things to eradicate or at least alleviate hunger in this country. It just doesn't make sense that anyone should be hungry, not in our country. We are not a third world country, so I'm looking forward to what we will do around that. And then obviously we know that the president did a lot of great things around the Infrastructure Act, and so making sure that now that that is codified into law, that we work with our local electeds to make sure that we're absolutely able to benefit from that right here in North Texas, and that we pull down on those monies and we start to see some projects going on. We start to see new jobs created from the Infrastructure Act.
And you just mentioned that you're part of the Agriculture Committee, also the House Oversight Committee. Would you share in a little bit more detail what is it that you hope to accomplish as part of them?
Yeah, so when it comes to oversight, I think it's been determined that the majority that currently has control is not interested in actually governing or performing actual oversight. But what I think that we're able to do as Democrats on that committee is show that there are some real issues that we can tackle. For instance, one of our first hearings was over Twitter and a New York Post link. We did an entire day's worth of hearing on one post on Twitter. And when I campaigned, no one was asking me about Twitter. And if they were, their concerns are around the safeties as it relates to bullying, and they are concerned about things such as the insurrection. They're concerned about the harms and the dangers that can come from social media. And so we redirected the conversation. I think we will consistently see that Democrats will redirect those conversations and try to get something meaningful for the American people out of them. So that's what oversight will look like. As it relates to ag, like I said, the Farm Bill is really our big task, making sure, for instance, I was able to visit one of my food banks to learn a lot more about the projects that they have going on, how many people they're feeding, and some of the creative solutions that they've come up with.
Congresswoman Crockett, it's been a pleasure.
We're going to be fighting every day to make sure that your tax dollars are coming back home.
Coming up, we'll sit down with freshman U.S. Representative Greg Casar and learn more about the issues he's taking to the president on behalf of Texans. Keep it here. Welcome back. The newest class of federal legislators from Texas includes a longtime labor organizer and former member of the Austin City Council, Congressman Greg Casar from our state's 35th Congressional District. I recently spoke to the Houston native who shared he wants to expand his pro-worker policies nationwide and more.
Representative Greg Casar, welcome to In Focus, Texas. You are the whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. What are some of the priorities this caucus is currently working on, and what impact do they have for Texans?
The Congressional Progressive Caucus is 102 members. We're our largest size we've ever been because we know that everyday folks in places like Texas need progressive leadership. We know that even though billion-dollar corporations have been making more and more profits, that working people are struggling paying for their mortgage or for their housing. We know that the climate crisis is getting worse, but so many of our leaders are putting their heads in the sand and leaving us even with the lights turned off. And so we need bold progressive leadership in places like Texas. The Progressive Caucus is working on making sure that we deliver now for the American people, regardless of who's in charge of the House. And so we're pushing and working with the Biden administration on things like making sure that we have stronger labor protections so that people can get higher wages in places like Texas. We're working with the Biden administration to provide more access to things like medication, abortion, so that despite the horrible abortion bans in places like Texas, that families can have access to this baseline level of care. So as a caucus, we're ready to work with anyone, regardless of party affiliation, as long as we're moving things forward.
And you're also a member of the House Oversight and Agriculture Committees. What do you want to accomplish as part of them? And what are you doing to work with members from across the aisle?
On the House Agriculture Committee, we have to pass a farm bill here this session of Congress. And the farm bill traditionally is a very bipartisan bill where we can make sure we support our small farmers and farm workers, as well as funding critical nutrition programs that keep kids and seniors fed. That's school lunches and SNAP and WIC and programs for our elders and our seniors and our grandparents. We need to make sure that we pass a bill that takes care of everyone. I also am on the House Oversight Committee, where we have to be a part of the crew of people bringing truth to Congress. On the Oversight Committee, we see so much misinformation, so many lies. The Oversight Committee should be holding the powerful accountable. Instead, right now, so many of the leaders, Republican leaders of the Oversight Committee, are trying to spend the whole time on conspiracy theories, trying to bolster up the conspiracy theories behind things like the January 6th attacks on the Capitol. We have to hold those Republican officials accountable and make sure that the Oversight Committee goes back to its real work of standing up for American families, standing up for our democracy, and having real oversight so that we can protect taxpayer dollars from grifters and fraudsters.
Well, you represent our state's 35th congressional district, and it goes from Austin south to San Antonio. And Austinites may be familiar with your prior work as a council member, but what are you doing to connect with constituents in the rest of your district?
I was just in Texas for 2 weeks, and I make sure to get back every weekend that I can and spend real time in Austin, but also in Hays County and Comal County and in Bexar County. I recently was meeting with leaders in San Antonio specifically to make sure that we're bringing dollars home to Texas, but especially to Hays County and to San Antonio. The President Biden, has signed historic laws into place, like the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Climate Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act, to make sure that we bring billions of taxpayer dollars home to places that need it the most. I've been committed to constituents in Austin for years, and now I have the honor of supporting Texans in places like the west side of San Antonio or northeast Bexar County or central Hays County. And we're going to be fighting every day to make sure that your tax dollars are coming back home to create good jobs, take care of our seniors and our kids.
All right, Congressman Casar, thank you for sharing some time with us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
A total of 40 legislators make up the current Texas congressional delegation. And as our D.C. correspondent Rina Diamante shows us, among our Texas lawmakers with tenure, 4 are leading key committees in the U.S. House of Representatives.
We have our former Homeland Security.
There's a Texas-sized Republican delegation in Washington, and 4 of its members lead all-important committees. 2, in particular, have an outsized say over the power of the purse. Representative Kay Granger, the first Texas Republican to chair the Appropriations Committee, and Representative Jody Arrington will lead the Budget Committee. This comes after the lengthy vote over House Speaker, where divisions among Republicans over the party's priorities were laid bare. One of those divisions, whether cuts to the military should be part of a broad Republican Republican push to rein in federal spending. Arrington says he wants to tackle the national debt. Meanwhile, in a statement, Granger said, as the former chair of the Defense Subcommittee and as someone who has thousands of service members and hundreds of defense contractors in my district, I know how important it is that we have a strong defense.
You're going to have a pretty big debate between the budget hawks and then the defense hawks. That's going to be the primary kind of clash within the Republican Party.
Representative Michael McCall, the first Texan to chair the Foreign Affairs Committee. He believes the country owes it to veterans to investigate the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. In addition, he anticipates much more scrutiny into the flow of U.S. aid to Ukraine.
We also want to make sure the burden sharing is taking place with NATO allies like France and Germany. And we also, with appropriations, will be very prescriptive as to what weapons are going in.
Still, the Austin Republican says it's important that U.S. foreign policy counter aggressive regimes abroad.
The world's getting very dangerous right now with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea coming together in this unholy alliance. We're seeing that threat of foreign nation adversary states against the free world and the West.
Representative Roger Williams was tapped to lead the Small Business Committee.
Next, we'll meet up with State Representative Ellen Troxclair as we make our way back to our Texas capital. She's new to the job and we'll learn about the bills she's working on behalf of Texans. Our Texas legislature also has new state representatives that are taking on those issues that matter to Texans. State Representative Ellen Troxclair is one of them. Representative Troxclair, welcome to In Focus, Texas.
Thank you for having me.
You are a small business owner, a nonprofit leader, but you're no stranger to Texas politics. How is your past experience as a member of Austin City Council helping you now that you are a state representative?
Absolutely. Well, I was just a frustrated Austinite who wasn't sure how I was going to be able to pay my property taxes at the rate that they were increasing. So I ran for Austin City Council as a 29-year-old on the platform of passing the city's first homestead exemption. I was glad that I was elected to do that and was able to get that policy past the finish line. And I think my service at the local level and as a small business owner will help me to best represent the people of House District 19 in the Hill Country.
And what are your legislative priorities in this session, and what type of bills have you filed so far?
My most important thing is that I earn the trust of my constituents throughout this first session and follow through on my campaign promises. And those include protecting our kids, securing our border, reforming and lowering our property taxes, and ensuring that Texas maintains the ability to lead our country boldly and fearlessly in freedom. So you asked about a couple of bills I have filed. I have filed bills to make sure that inappropriate material is not in our Texas schools, that we use a majority of our surplus to lower Texans' property tax bills and lower and eventually get rid of our dependence on Robinhood that is robbing too many of our communities of their hard-earned tax dollars. And I will also be filing a series of bills on Austin Energy and to ensure that the thousands and thousands of people who depend on Austin Energy are able to have heat and electricity. And we did not see that during the most recent storm. So we need to elect an independent board, and we need to put some more accountability into Austin Energy to ensure that that utility is managed properly.
You're part of the Culture, Recreation, and Tourism Committee in the Texas House. So what are some of your goals as part of that committee?
Yeah, so I mean, both of the committees I serve on have a wide range of jurisdiction. Culture, Recreation, and Tourism oversees our state parks. We do, again, in Fredericksburg, you can imagine short-term rental issues and the pouring of people that we have into certain small communities over our state. We need to make sure that we have the infrastructure and that we're not destroying the quality of life for the people who actually live there. And Second Amendment issues, you know, those will also go through this committee, supporting our police officers. So there's a lot of really important work for us to do over the next, 90 days that we're in session. And I'm excited to get the work underway.
Representative Troxclair, thank you for stopping by here at In Focus, Texas.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope your viewers can connect with me on all kinds of social media at Ellen Troxclair on my website, troxclairfortexas.com. We are hitting the ground running in my office, and I would love for you to be a part of the lawmaking process.
You know where to find her. As State Representative Troxclair highlighted, the focus on property taxes is being prioritized in our state 88th legislative session. Our political reporter Charlotte Scott has details on the proposals our state House and Senate are considering to give some relief to Texas homeowners.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Jack Kesterson is talking about those property tax proposals from Texas lawmakers. He purchased his South Austin home in 2006. He didn't take me there for privacy reasons, but he says he pays more than $10,000 in property taxes for a 1,000 square foot home. The House proposal would save homeowners an average of $460 a year. The Senate's would save them about $341 annually.
$350 out of $10,000? Come on. That's not even 10%.
But tax expert Dale Kramer says the Senate still has more legislation to introduce on property taxes, so that savings number could be much higher. This is just what we know so far.
They will use additional money to buy down property tax rates further. So I don't think we've seen the complete Senate plan yet.
Kramer says the median price of a home in Texas is $340,000. The owner would pay about $6,000 in property taxes every year. And even though Kesterson doesn't think lawmakers are doing all they can to reduce property taxes, Kramer says a few $100s per year could help someone who really needs it.
Obviously, the very high-end properties pay a lot more property tax, and maybe $400 of tax relief doesn't mean a lot to them. But for someone who owns a $250,000 home and is barely making their mortgage payments, you know, $400 can be a godsend.
Kramer says another way lawmakers could cut property taxes is by funding schools. If schools get more money from the state, they'll require less money from taxpayers.
It's kind of like a game of poker, and not all the cards yet have been dealt.
But Kesterson wishes Texas would just have an income tax instead. He's seen many neighbors priced out of the area.
They live in a house that started out costing $6,000 and is now worth $800,000 just for the property. And the city and the state is charging them taxes on all of that. So they have to sell these houses. They can't afford them.
That'll do it for this week's In Focus Texas. I'm Carla Leal. Thanks for joining us as we learn more about our newest class of Texas federal legislators. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel, and for more refreshing stories about your community, click the subscribe button right over here. You can also download our Spectrum News app to get live news coverage, weather alerts, and more wherever you are. And don't forget to tune in to Channel 55 on Dish and DirecTV for live local reporting every single day. We'll see you then.